Welcome to Read and Think. This is where a book that I'm reading, certain phrases catch my eye and make me think, and I'm sharing with you. First up, Thomas Sowell in his Cultures and Conquests book. The rise of British iron and steel industry was intertwined with the development of coal mining. The steam engine was first applied to pumping groundwater out of coal mines to enable digging to proceed deeper into the earth, thereby promoting not only the extraction of coal, but with it the production of iron and steel. Then, as the steam engine itself was improved to the point of being a practical alternative to water power for driving machines in factories, the greater stresses on the machinery created by powerful steam engines created a rising demand for iron and steel that could take such stresses better than the wooden machine parts used to transmit water power. Later, as steam engines were further developed to serve as power for railroad locomotives, coal replaced wood as fuel, and iron and steel rails replaced wood reels. What I find interesting about this paragraph is that one thing led to another, so that there was a chain reaction of trying to get water out of a coal mine so you could get to a deeper vein of the coal. And then people realized, okay, well, now that I can get to the coal, that means I can also get to the iron ore to make steel. And the idea that people used this steam engine that became stronger and stronger, it started to break the wood, so that machines that were used in textile cloth making, they would just bust up because the steam engines would break apart the wooden parts of those machines. So now they said, well, we can use this iron, but we got to make the iron into steel. We have to make it stronger. We have to make it workable. And therefore, we could create a machine working with the steam engine. What's interesting is that the water power had long dominated the use of water wheels, etc., had long dominated any sense of what a machine was. And as we'll see, then what happened is they said, well, we're going to replace this, this, and this for locomotives, coal and wood, and then steel and wooden rails. And so you could see this element of technology jumping into and then replacing an entire other industry with better products. And I think it's kind of interesting to look at that and see, well, what is around us that is replaceable for something better and stronger and more resilient? And therein lies opportunity when you can see how technology gives you a leg up. We're seeing that a lot today with AI and coming into looking at data, something that's not unlike mining, I suppose, because they do call it data mining, and the idea of a human looking at it or a simple spreadsheet, but then adding into it the ability of AI to look at this data and extrapolate information that we might not see. And it does depending on the algorithm or the programming of the AI, but still, that's the era that we're in, to see where AI can take things and dig deeper into the mind. In this second passage here, it was not merely things that developed, people developed. Textile mills began to locate in the vicinity of ironworks because one could find skilled mechanics familiar with machinery and able to repair and maintain textile machinery, as well as other machines they dealt with. Engineers and mechanics were as much products of the industrialization process as the material goods and the machinery by which those goods were produced. So were inventors. More patents were issued in the quarter century after 1760 than in the preceding 150 years. It's also worth noting here that as late as 1876, there were more than 100 foreign industrial workers in the Japanese railroad industry, and of those, 94 were British. We also have mobility, because the movement of skilled artisans was especially important during the early phases of British industrialization, when the predominant forms of human capital consisted of individual experience, personal knacks, and the trial and error methods, rather than the application of science, which would come later. What's interesting is that the knack of particular craftsmen began to be replaced during the 1820s to the 1840s by machines made in a standardized manner by machine tools, standardized. Using machines to make other machines allowed finer tolerances to be maintained, sometimes down to 1/1000th of an inch. And this in turn meant that parts could be made interchangeable. Standardized and systematized production of machines promoted the rise of engineering as a profession. So what we have here is hand-in-hand development of people with machines, new skills, new ideas, new ways of looking, and new perspectives. And then when those machines evolved from wood machines, let's say textile making a blanket, to a mechanical machine, then people had to figure out how things worked and to make them better and better and better. Hence we have engineers who figure these kinds of things out in an industrial age, which of course changed the entire world. So when you had that, you had the ability to come up with ideas that said, well, a human does this. How can we save time? How do we save money? How do we make it more efficient? And I think it's fascinating that therefore there was a big shift of perspective and mindset. And the fact that there were a lot of people getting this experience and trial and error methods, and it became in some ways standardized. And when we hear of standardized, we take it for granted right now that if you have a problem with your car or a computer, you could actually swap out the gear because somebody said, let's make it all the same when we switch out the mouse, the keyboard, the motherboard, etc. on your computer, or the carburetor, or fan belts, or something else on your car. You can actually get some standardized part and do that. This is actually fascinating because this is how it became standardized and how you actually came up with the idea of tolerances, that somebody could make 20 of something or 20,000 and sell them all around the world. So this is a new way of thinking and a new way of looking at things. How are we seeing it today? Right now I work in the film industry, which is going through massive change because of a number of things. First, there was the digital world. Then there was the theatrical impact after COVID, which changed human behavior. The rise of much better television sets and sound sets in people's homes, as well as the ability for creators to actually go on YouTube and make something of interest, so that not just film and TV are the dominant forms of entertainment. In addition, for the film industry, we have streaming, which goes all around the world, meaning that the other layers of profitability, which could be theatrical, prime cable, DVD or VHS, I know some of you don't know what those are, and then the idea of free television and then international sales on various levels and territories has all been wiped out by streaming. Now platforms want to keep their content for themselves and rarely rent it out or license it to somebody else. So we're looking at different ways people look at things, different ways they create, and different ways they expand their reach. And this is what's occurring right here in this book during the industrial age.